Hello again, and welcome back to the Latex Modified Concrete Working Group and our continuing series on the use of HPLMC. Thanks for joining us. I'm Pat Martins with Bridge Preservation and Inspection Services reporting for the working group. Today we will be looking at the placement of HPLMC. As we have been discussing pre-pour considerations, we have been touching on various aspects of placement. Let's tie it all together now. Prior to the pour, remember that the deck has been completely cleaned and saturated and covered with plastic. This helps to lock in our moisture on the deck in a saturated surface dry condition. But the plastic is also protecting the deck, including any droppings off the mobile mixer onto the clean deck surface such as sand, stone, or other oil or fluids from the truck itself. Anything that can contribute to preventing a bond breaker is also a function of the plastic covering. As the mobile mixer is brought into position and ready to begin the pour, only then is the protective plastic pulled back far enough ahead of an area of deck where the concrete can be dispensed immediately in front of the finishing machine. As material is dispensed, laborers will help move material into place for strike-off by the machine. An experienced mobile mix operator is invaluable in being able to place fresh latex concrete across the deck to a uniform depth just in front of the roller to minimize the effort needed by the laborers. If the deck is hydroblasted, it will not be necessary to grout the horizontal surface ahead of the pour. If it is a milled or abrasive blasted surface only, it will be necessary to grout, and a worker or workers will need to have stiff bristle brooms to grout in material ahead of the pour. The easiest way to do this is to pull grout from the fresh latex being placed and thoroughly broom the paste into the surface. All decks will require grouting of all final vertical surfaces ahead of the pour. This should only be done far enough ahead of the pour so that the material will not dry out before the fresh overlay pour comes in contact with it. Any aggregate that has lost its latex cementitious paste should be removed from the deck surface to avoid honeycombing in deeper patch areas and to make sure a solid paste mix is in contact with the surface. Workers will also need to remove puddles of water that may be present on the deck or accumulate in front of the pour. This needs to be done both before and during placement. Make sure that enough material is built up in front of the finish machine screed 1 inch or so. The machine will continue to push the excess material ahead of the pour. The finish machine will have a vibrator on it to help with consolidation, but additional hand vibrators will also be needed. The finish machine will not be able to reach the very outer edges of the deck. That area will need to be vibrated by hand. Also, on hydroblasted surfaces where variable depth removal has exposed the top mat of steel, those deeper pockets should also be vibrated to aid in consolidation. Take note of the strike-off and finish by the machine to the final grade. It should leave a smooth surface behind the rollers. If it leaves ridges or tailings, it may require a slight adjustment of the rollers. The drag pan and burlap drag will also help to finish and seal off the surface. If everything is running correctly, it may not even be necessary to hit the surface with additional hand finishing floats, but if it is necessary, a Fresno float is preferred. The outside portions of the pour will require hand finish as the finish machine cannot get totally out to out. It is important to maintain a consistent pace of pour. If there is a short delay in receiving material, the installer should apply wet burlap to the end of the placement to keep the interface damp. Also be sure to vibrate the area well when the pour does resume there. Depending on the agency, it may be necessary to incorporate a texture with a rake or broom prior to wet curing. Some agencies prefer a post-cure grooving. However, when wet cure tining is performed, the finisher will need to be cognizant of the set of the latex concrete. This can be tricky. As latex concrete starts to set, it will develop a crust on the top surface. It is important that the finisher can add the texture prior to the crust developing. However, if the finisher tries to put the tine in too soon, While the material is too wet, it may float back into the groove. This is normally more of a problem if the installer is pouring with too high of a slump. It takes a keen eye and feel for when to add the rake finish at the appropriate time. Delays in tining, though, also means a delay to the start of curing, which is very critical to latex concrete and is the subject of our next video. So that's it for this week. Join us for that all-important curing subject next week, probably the most important part of HPLMC installation. If you have a specific question on the placement of HPLMC, you can drop us a line at the working group's email address at lmcwg@bridgepreservation.net. And as always, we hope you will continue to follow us on the Latex Modified Concrete Working Group's social media sites. Hey, let's continue to extend the life of our bridge decks by preserving them with HPLMC overlays. See you next time.